I woke up to the sound of crackling flames. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Maybe I was camping, maybe someone nearby was having a barbecue. But then the sharp, acrid stench of burning chemicals hit my nose, and the smoke seeping through my bedroom window told me otherwise. My chest clenched. I threw the sheets off and bolted to the window. What I saw made my blood run cold. My motorcycle, the one issued by the State Patrol, the bike I'd spent more hours on than I could count, was on fire. Flames danced over the frame, licking up the sides and curling toward the night sky like the devil himself had stoked the coals. The heat shimmered against the pavement in my own damn driveway. My first instinct was to grab the fire extinguisher from the kitchen, but even as I stumbled toward the front door, I knew it was already too late. The flames were too high, the damage already irreversible. I didn't bother with shoes. My bare feet slapped against the cold concrete as I sprinted out into the night, the heat from the blaze rushing over me in waves. My heart thudded in my ears as I stood there, helpless, watching my bike, the machine I used to serve and protect, turn into a smoldering wreck. And then I heard it. Laughter. I turned my head, following the sound across the street. There they were, standing in a neat little group on the manicured lawn like they were celebrating a job promotion. Wine glasses in hand, they toasted, their smug faces lit by the fire's glow. It was the HOA board. Front and center was their president, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore. Pearls gleaming at her neck, hair perfectly coiffed, she looked more like she was hosting a charity gala than watching a felony unfold. She whispered something to the others, and they all chuckled. Then she turned, lifted her glass in my direction, and smiled like the devil himself. "Next time," she called out, her voice oozing with false sweetness, "try following the rules, Mr. Granger." For a long moment, I stood there frozen. Not because I was afraid, not because I was in shock, but because I was trying to comprehend just how far these suburban tyrants were willing to go. I dealt with criminals, reckless drivers, the occasional meth head waving a tire iron in an alley. But this was something else. 2 days earlier, they'd shown up at my door with what they called a welcome packet. In reality, it was a polite threat dressed up in pastel stationery. The Homeowners Association, what I'd come to think of as the neighborhood mafia, had made it clear that joining was highly encouraged. They'd spoken with those rehearsed, sugary tones that made my skin crawl. They wanted control over where I parked, how I mowed my lawn, even what color curtains I hung on my windows. Idée déclinante. Politely at first, and then the fines started rolling in. First, a notice that my grass was half an inch too tall. Then another one claiming my police motorcycle was a non-compliant vehicle and had to be stored out of sight. That one came with a $500 fine. I laughed, tossed in the trash, and figured that was the end of it. Apparently, they hadn't appreciated my sense of humor. By the time the fire department arrived, the damage was done. My driveway was a chaotic mess of flashing lights and shouting firefighters. The smell of burned rubber and scorched metal hung thick in the air. I stood there, arms crossed, silent, watching them work. There wasn't anything else to do. One of the firefighters, a guy I knew from around town, Carter, walked over and let out a low whistle. "Damn, Rick, what the hell happened?" I exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of my neck. HOA happened. His eyebrows shot up. "You serious?" I didn't answer. Didn't need to. My jaw was clenched so tight it made my teeth ache. I already knew who did it, and I had proof. The security cameras I'd installed around my property, because being a cop, you never stop being cautious, had captured every damn second. Later that night, when the flames were nothing but smoke and charred debris, I sat in my living room and reviewed the footage. And there they were, the entire HOA board creeping onto my property in the middle of the night. I watched as David Murray, the balding guy who was always ranting about fence heights at the meetings, poured gasoline over my bike like he was fueling a bonfire at a frat party. Then Sandra Bell, Eleanor Whitmore's right hand, struck a match and tossed it like she'd been waiting her whole life to do something that reckless. There was laughter, there was celebration, and there was enough evidence to put them away for a long time. What they didn't know was who I really was. Sure, they knew I was a cop. Maybe they thought I was just another beat officer. Maybe they figured I'd write some reports, blow off steam, and move on. But I wasn't just a cop. I was a state trooper. They hadn't just committed arson. They had committed a felony against state property, a federal crime, and they'd done it to someone who could bring their whole house of cards crashing down. I leaned back in my chair, a slow grin creeping onto my face. They had no idea how badly they'd screwed up. The next morning, I stood in my driveway with my arms crossed, watching as the HOA board gathered for their usual gossip session near the community garden. Eleanor was dressed like she was running for Congress, pearls and all. She caught sight of me and offered a smug little smile. "Such a shame about your motorcycle," she said, every word laced with fake sympathy. "Perhaps next time you'll reconsider our community guidelines." I smiled back, a slow, deliberate grin. "Oh, I definitely will," I replied, my tone light. "In fact, I'd love to discuss it with all of you, maybe over at the station." She blinked. "The station?" I pulled out my badge and flipped it open just enough for the sunlight to glint off it. Her face lost color faster than I thought humanly possible. The others shifted uncomfortably, their confidence evaporating like morning fog under the sun. "Yeah," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Seeing as how you and your little committee committed felony arson against state property, I figure we should have a proper chat, maybe with a few of my colleagues." Eleanor took a step back, then another. The rest of them looked like kids caught cheating on a test. I chuckled. "See you soon." That afternoon, the panic was obvious. They huddled on Eleanor's porch, whispering in frantic tones, casting nervous glances at my house. I sat on my porch sipping coffee, enjoying the show. They had no clue just how deep they were in. By noon, I got the call I was waiting for. My buddy, Officer Martinez, had reviewed the footage. His laughter echoed through the phone. "You mean to tell me a bunch of soccer moms and retirees committed first-degree arson on a state trooper's bike? Rick, man, this is going to be fun." He handled the paperwork. I handled the rest. The HOA meeting was held that afternoon at the clubhouse, the same place where they'd probably toasted to their little act of sabotage. When I walked in, the room fell silent. Every board member was there. Eleanor sat at the center of the polished table, fingers gripping her pen like it was a lifeline. "Mr. Granger," she said, her smile tight. "To what do we owe the pleasure?" I didn't answer. Not at first. I walked up to the table, pulled out my phone, and tapped the screen. The footage played in crisp clarity. Gasoline. A match. Laughter. Flames. Someone in the back gasped. Eleanor's face went ghost white. "We need to have a little chat," I said calmly. The man in the sweater vest, David Murray, jumped to his feet. "This is outrageous. You can't." "Sit down," I interrupted, my voice low and sharp. He sat. An hour later, Martinez walked through the door with 2 uniformed officers. "Afternoon, folks," he said cheerfully. "We got some paperwork here with your names on it." Chaos. Pure chaos. Some screamed, some begged, one woman fainted. Martinez just grinned as the handcuffs clicked shut. Eleanor was still screeching about how this was harassment as they loaded her into the back of the squad car. "You burned a cop's bike, lady," Martinez said, shaking his head. "We can absolutely do this." The trial was a spectacle. The courtroom was packed. Eleanor strutted in like she was walking into a black tie event instead of a felony hearing. The others looked wrecked. The prosecution didn't hold back. The footage was played for everyone. The gasps were loud. Even the judge had to rub his temples. The defense? A joke. Eleanor tried to play the victim, tried to say it was all a misunderstanding. The judge wasn't buying it. "You expect me to believe," he said, "that you accidentally poured gasoline on a police motorcycle and accidentally lit a match?" Guilty. Every last one of them. Eleanor got jail time, along with her closest cronies. The HOA? Dissolved. Overnight. We voted. Gone. And in its place? Freedom. The old HOA office was torn down. In its place, we built a park. A place where people could gather without fear citations. At the entrance, a giant sign, HOA Free Zone. The first barbecue was a blast. Families laughing together for the first time in years. Martinez even showed up. You really called this the anti-HOA cookout? He asked, laughing. Damn right, I said, flipping burgers. People shared stories of their ridiculous finds. We laughed. We healed. Near the end of the night, a new guy wandered over. Introduced himself as Greg. Asked about the old HOA. They had a little accident with fire, I said. He laughed. Hey, maybe we should start a new HOA. You know, reasonable this time? I stared at him for a long second. Greg, I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. He laughed nervously. I handed him a plate of barbecue. Eat, before I start writing fines. The fireworks went off. The kids cheered. And I realized something. I come here looking for peace and quiet. But I found something better. A community worth fighting for. And victory? It tasted damn good. Cuarto.